Well, hey, Mike is working good. Good morning, gamers. Welcome to BlueGamer Bluecast morning show. I'm your host, Adam Blue, 35 plus year video game enthusiast, professional video game enthusiast. Love talking about video games. We'll spend my morning time playing video games, talking video games. Maybe playing. But no, every morning I'll give some news, talk games. It's the first thing I do after getting the kids to school, getting everything squared away, and getting ready for work. Because I like games. It makes me happy. Hopefully, it makes you happy. And if there's anything about this that doesn't make you happy, please let me know. Okay, so to start, we've got Tuesday going on. What happens Monday with me when I get off work? Well, if there's not too much going on, I might play some games, and I did indeed do that. Not too much, though. I played some more V Rising. That is the vampire survival base building Diablo-like, very unique and interesting game. I'm trying to pull up how many hours I've now put into it since getting it last week. And there's an update too. 12 hours. So 12 hours in. I'm 12 hours in, and there's things like equipping a bag. Excuse me while there's like dog hair floating everywhere. But it's interesting that I'm seeing only 0.7 of players achieved that, which is very interesting. Like, it's very interesting to see how many people have just started the game, even though this game is like super popular. So there must be that many people actually playing it, that it then makes it look like the amount of people progressing in the game is very low. But it is a fantastic game. And that, volume's desynced again. Okay, that should fix it. Thank you for that. I'm trying to miss. That is so weird. That's only happening with this specific OBS profile. I've learned so much about OBS. I even rebuilt one for the Gundam Explained stream, and then that one now works fine. So what is it with this? Do I have to rebuild this also? We'll see. But anyway, thanks for that shout out. Let's see. V Rising, and then the only other thing I did was played again some Symphony of the Night, but I did it this time through my, and it's upstairs, the Android handheld that I have. It's the Galaxy S20 with the G-Sur controller, GameSir G8 Odyssey controller add-on. And so I did the PS Remote Play, and for the most part, is that even accurate anymore? It played fine. I was able, in Symphony of the Night, with that type of controls in Richter mode, get to like another save point. But it wasn't too stable. So it was interesting with the G-Sur, or the GameSir plugged in. You hold down start and select at the same time to cycle through modes. You can get it into PS5 mode. So that controller acts like a PS5 controller. It was having an issue where there was not a button to use for the touch button, or the touchpad. I didn't know what to do, was searching online. Someone had recommended an app called PS Play. That's a third-party app in the store. And I've noticed, even using Shiaki, that these third-party apps sometimes do better doing PS Remote Play than PS Remote Play itself. Anyway, I happened to be upstairs about to go to sleep at the time, so I didn't actually link it because it required me to go onto my PS5. Even though I remote it in with my Android, I can't get the link number you need and link code anyway, so I didn't get that far. But what was funny was the GameSir controller had a firmware update. I didn't even know about it. Updated it, and it added way more functionality. In fact, it has now a thing where you can double tap the screen to do the touchpad control. And the screenshot button, because on the PlayStation the screenshot button is where the select button would be on normal controllers. On the GameSir, the screenshot button is now the touchpad button. So got that solved, which I thought was pretty cool, because I there's some interesting games on PlayStation that are only on PlayStation, or at least when I was looking through the PS Essential, the Extra, I saw some really cool games on there that it's like, over some time, you have Xbox Game Pass for so long. And I think it's gone back and forth with like the PlayStation version and the Xbox version. Sometimes there's so many games on one that you want to play, and then you've kind of played them or you don't care about them, and then you see all these games on the other. But how often am I really actually playing the games? It's like Netflix, where I'm kind of just scrolling and looking around. I like to have intention, both with what I watch and what I play. Otherwise, I'm just spending my time trying to figure that out, right? And so that was about it with yesterday. Yeah, if I keep thinking about the gaming stuff I did, that was really it. Yeah, not too much. Not always during the week. Okay, so let's look at some gaming news, shall we? First, a couple things that I save when I come across it. So this was big news yesterday. PlayStation names Herman Hulst and Hideaki Nishino as its new CEOs. Very interesting. They're pulling a WB here, as Warner Brothers had done the same thing by pulling a James Gunn and that other dude. What's his name, like Peter or something? To have kind of like that co-CEO role. I mean, when you get... Because a lot of times it seems as if CEOs have to do kind of the creative sort of decision making, and that's not always what they need to be doing. And I feel like nowadays, with a lot of this, the media being the big thing, these companies are. It's like their CEO either goes all in on how do we sustain long term by doing short term things, or leading creatively. Now, It's interesting, WB went that route, and now Sony is going that route where they're having two CEOs. It's very, very interesting. And this is to replace Jim Ryan. Both of these guys have been at PlayStation, so I don't know what to think. And it's interesting because Xbox tends to be, and I don't think that's always the case. Xbox tends to be a little more upfront with their executives, their representatives. That Phil Spencer does a good job, but someone like Sarah Bond is super corpy, corp speak type. And when we get to these two, Herman Hulst, the few times I've seen him speak, it doesn't really stand out. And this other guy, he's been with PlayStation. So the fact that they've been within PlayStation, I think, is just good enough to be like, okay, let's see what they do. PlayStation had this trajectory that I didn't agree with, but it was successful for them. Because I like that Xbox and PlayStation are, even though PlayStation is in a sense doing better, not really, than Xbox, there's still that rivalry, and that's why that rivalry works, because PlayStation could sell a lot, make a lot of money, but Xbox is looking at the services and the games to build out their catalog. Anyway, with this news, reading this, there's not really much from here other than, again, like corporate speak. But hey, Sony is kicking things up a notch. When you get two CEOs, that's got to mean something. Okay, this is absolutely amazing. I don't know if I can... No, because that's just filling up my screen. Someone took Helldivers on PC and modded Star Wars Battlefront, or the Clone Wars. Basically, you have clone troopers. The ships are from Star Wars. The enemies are from the Clone Wars. Like, this is absolutely incredible, and I need to check this out for myself. And so that's what's interesting. Like, how much... Like, I love Helldivers, but like having an interesting IP, and not just interesting, familiar IP, I think helps a whole lot. And this really just shows, like, hey, LucasArts, hey, Disney, like, do this. It's funny how mods have to kind of show the developers what they need to get into. It's just a game with a property like Star Wars, specifically in the prequel era, the Clone Wars, that so many opportunities to make some really awesome video games. I think taking that Helldivers physics and making that, it's amazing. I'm gonna have to check this out later. Another thing was very interesting is I accidentally came across this Sonic the Hedgehog OVA from 1996. I didn't even know this existed, which is weird. And maybe I did and I just forgot. Or it could be just because I, wasn't too into anime. But, back when Sonic came out, they had the two shows. They had the weekday show, the Saturday morning cartoon. I loved them both, watched them both. It was incredible that was like on TV. And then in Japan, they have this OVA, which is actually pretty well done. I was watching it, has really good animation, and I don't know if it's the same animation or just the same team, but from the Sonic CD game, I remember when I would play that and it would have a Sonic cartoon. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And to me, that was more, and it's funny as a kid, I recognize this, like that Sonic cartoon and Sonic CD was more in line with the Sonic games rather than like the Saturday morning cartoon, the weekday show. But I was just taking whatever they were giving me. Anyway, I just watched a little bit of this and I was like, this is actually well done. One day I might want to watch it. It's, I feel like it speaks to me. 1996 Sonic. That's such an awesome time to be a gamer. And a kid at the same time, because games were new and doing cool new things we never saw before. 1996 is like you're getting around to the 3D era. Well, 2D is still awesome. Yeah, just a cool feeling with that one. All right, so let's look at some other video game news. Square Enix share price drops nearly 16% following underwhelming financial results. That's where they then talked about how they are now going to make sure all games are multi-platform, because this is what happens in terms of, like, I guess companies may have not had to worry about that too much in the past. It's very interesting, I guess, because the exclusives was more of, hey, if this company's going to pay me a lot of money to make it only on this, okay, sure. But now we're figuring out how much more money could be made than keeping something exclusive. In fact, I don't even think there's a number anymore that a platform holder could pay to make something exclusive unless they buy them outright. Hence, Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard. Interesting. We're still going to see this fallout, this aftermath for the bigger AAA studios. Xbox is adding the ability to pre-download updates. What does that even mean? Wait. So the feature, which is already present on PS5, lets players download large updates for games ahead of time so that when the update is set to go live, it simply can be installed and played. I guess that makes sense nowadays, depending on like how big, like Call of Duty, and maybe that's what they're prepping for, Call of Duty updates that come out that are so huge. But it's one of those things where, like, how far do you go? It's like, now I want the pre-update for the pre-update so that I can download my update when it's available before it goes, like, it's... But again, thinking of like the example being something like Call of Duty, maybe even Grand Theft Auto, is this what this looks more like, a quality of life need that is going to have to be there in the future rather than just a random, here's a thing you could do. Yeah, just thinking of how big these games are getting. All right, there's going to be a Lego Zelda Great Deku Tree. Pretty neat. Let's see if it has a picture. Don't know if I would get it. There is not a picture. What kind of article is this? Okay, showing some... Oh yeah, I mean, it looks all right. I don't know. I wouldn't mind just a little box that has like Link and then the Master Sword in the stone or something like that. Wow, 2 Joy-Con drift lawsuits have been dismissed after 5 years. Now, why would that be? Let's see. In response to the legal action and player disappointment, Nintendo issued an apology, but argued that players who purchased the items were bound by the user agreement. Nintendo Switch less ineligible to participate in the class lawsuit. Oh, wow. So they almost had a clause in there to protect them from that. So... almost like they knew something was going to happen. And it's very interesting. I've learned so much about video game controllers this past year to know that the Joy-Cons are overpriced by a lot. Like, there's so much components to these that are like crap quality versus what I've been getting. Like, everything that is in this it is a better version of what you can find in a Joy-Con, and it's cheaper than a Joy-Con. Yeah, sure, the Joy-Cons are split into 2, but it doesn't really change the technology much. They're still communicating with each other with wireless technology. That's what's in here. In fact, this has the multiple options for Switch, Xbox, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, As much as I think Nintendo's awesome, I think their Joy-Cons are a scam. Even though it's cool, it's neat, but hey, look, it's not comfortable. I think there's a difference between having a controller attached to a handheld and then a controller you would use separately, and those are not comfortable at all. Even my kids, growing up with the console, didn't really care for the Joy-Cons as much, and that's why they had to create those little things to plug them into. But oh, Midnight Hatter, how come N64 joysticks are still good after 20 years, but all these new products, are fail within 6 months? Yeah, that's a great point with the N64 controller sticks, because I even thought those things would deteriorate too quick. You could break them if you weren't careful, but they lasted long, especially some of the games that they had at the time and how people were using it. It's a very good point. I was watching this YouTuber where he was at a some sort of thrift thing, and there was some N64 controllers. He's like, well, I'm going to buy these just whenever my old ones stop working. And it's like cool to hear that for a console that old. The guy's like, for when they stop working. So yeah, I feel like Nintendo has been doing this since like the Wii era, just coming up with all these peripherals just to make more money. Yeah, and that's where they make a lot of money. I've bought multiple sets of Joy-Cons, and every time it's like, okay, we got to buy Joy-Cons. This is how much they are. But kind of crazy. I know people like to say Nintendo's the good guy, and they probably are to a degree. But that's not too cool, especially on top of the emulation lawsuit, which I feel like they have the right to do that. But then also I hear that even though, like, what was it, Iwata, their CEO, took a pay cut because of their financials, that's actually imposed by the Japanese federal government, that you can't just lay off people if you're not making enough money. And so they go to reduce their pay. That's like the only option. So learning more and more, it seems like the Japanese government is very protective over consumers more than the US, and that might be obvious, but then we do get, Japan does get a company like Nintendo that, even if they're forced to do these things, at the end of the day, they're a very consumer-focused company with what they provide. All right, so it's time for publishing to change. Yeah, I think we've been saying this for a long time. I think for me, when I realized there are these bigger players that come in and then mess things up, was with EA and Westwood. So this was late 90s, early 2000s. I remember when I first started seeing the Command & Conquer boxes with EA on it, I was like, okay, interesting. Because back then, I don't know, what is that, 16 or something? There was a degree of me that didn't really understand or care about that stuff. But then they closed the studio of Westwood. Then they came out with Command & Conquer 3, which wasn't that great. I mean, and they started doing better, but overall they dropped the ball. And then just from there, I just always saw that, where when it's a bigger publisher that just needs a game that makes money, they buy a game. When a publisher is buying a game because it's popular, it's not always a good sign. And I mean, that's the same with Microsoft. I mean, when they first got Rare, what did they even do with Rare? Nothing. I mean, they've got Sea of Thieves by now, which is doing really good. But in that interim, in that early part, we were expecting like an N64 golden age. And that's the thing. Like, when the Xbox came out, it was taking from what Sega was doing and grabbed what it could from Nintendo. And it kind of worked, actually. Xbox really put itself on the map, if you think about it. Okay. PlayStation full year revenue rise to $27 billion, but narrowly misses PS5 sales target. I mean, look, I don't even know what to say, because that number is so big that I could probably have 1% of that. No one would notice, and I would be fine. Yeah. Let's see. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, 16 foam stars, all sold less than expected. Although, to be honest, Square Enix has been known for having these super high expectations for their sales, especially when they had the Hitman franchise before, and I forget what the other games were from before, where like the sales, they said, oh, the sales are horrible. It's like, that made a lot of money. And they're like, yeah, but it's not what we want. So I get it. Helldivers 2 has sold 12 million units in 12 weeks. So that's right under, but creeping up to Elden Ring. Wow. That's interesting how big these two games are that have that very similar sort of atmosphere to them, where it's all about survival and you could die easily and you have to like learn the world. Again, people like that stuff. Okay, PlayStation 5 sales dropped 29%. And again, I think part of that makes sense. Like, you can only sell so much, and the PlayStation has sold a whole ton. Yeah, Helldivers 2 breaking launch records. That's great. Yeah, look at that. PS 59 million units. I mean, that's still under some of the greats like the PS2, the Wii, and the Switch, but that's still a lot. That's very cool. I mean, especially considering so many people are fine with their PS4 and can do everything they want with the PS4. So I think that's good for having a concurrent console that's still doing really well. That's good. Let's see. Okay, all that news from yesterday about the CEO stuff. So this is about the time I probably came across that. Yeah. Okay, so here's what I want to do real quick. I May video game releases. I know we looked at this before, but I've already forgotten, and I don't know what the best website is for that. Okay, here we go. So we're at the 14th. So that means a game on PlayStation called Neptunia Game Maker Revolution came out, and then we're gonna get, and it just says PlayStation right here. Okay, it's interesting they're dividing it up. Yeah, I gotta say nothing here. And then let's look into June. So Elden Ring is the main thing coming up. So hopefully I have time to maybe get back to another game I haven't played yet. Just gotta look at to see if there's anything that's like, oh, I gotta play that. You know, Black Myth Wukong, Gundam Breaker 4, Star Wars Outlaws. Oh my god. Oh my god. That's gonna be a lot I gotta do. And then what? Interesting. Earth Defense Force World Brothers 2. That's got to be separate from 6. But that's a lot of games to come out within a couple weeks of each other that I'm going to want to play. That is insane. And it looks like there's a whole bunch of games that haven't even been... Okay, so that was PlayStation. Let's see, Nintendo. You got anything? Biomutant. Interesting. Anything from here? No. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, but I don't know if I'm really gonna. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, that's pretty neat. I played a lot of that. I think that was 3DS originally. That's a fun game. Yeah, it's cool on the 3DS, but would I play it again? I don't know. TMNT Twisted Fate, that's pretty cool. I could see buying that because I have that on the Apple Arcade. It's actually really good. And then nothing else. Okay, let's see what they've got Xbox wise. Okay, so that the 21st is the game that I'm only gonna play because it's probably gonna be on Game Pass. I mean, it's cool, looks cool, but I'm just curious how it's gonna be received by everyone else. That Killer Clowns game's coming out too. Okay, I'm starting to see where it's, unless something TBA gets announced, it's going to be that late August, early September. That's going to be super. Oh, lots of PC games coming out soon. Again, Ghost of Tsushima, Director's Cut or Tsushima. Haven't beat it. Would love to be playing it on PC, but PS5 looks really good anyway. The Rogue Prince of Persia. Looks cool, but I don't know. Like, I played... So here's what's weird, especially when I see this early access. When Dead Cells came out, that was in early access. I played the crap out of it before it was its main release. And then when the main release came out and it had all these new updates, by then I was like, I'm kind of done. Now it's got this extra stuff. I think I don't like getting into a game in early access because then by the time it's out and it's its proper release, I am then playing it within the mind frame, the context of its bare bones release. And so sometimes it's not as interesting or as engaging because now I'm just seeing systems put on top. That being said, I want to play this, but it will be when it's out of early access. It's the same thing with Hades 2, with the No Rest for the Wicked. These are all early access games, and I'm just historically up to this point now, I realize I don't get the most out of an early access game if I play it when it first comes out. But I really want to play No Rest for the Wicked. Okay, so yeah, it's gonna be the and I don't even know if I would play Stalker 2. That's interesting. But yeah, it's gonna be that late August, early September. Tons of cool games that I'm gonna want to play. And what's interesting is they all have very strong, like, it's not like a multiplayer only game. These have, even if they're multiplayer or not, it's really about kind of like that campaign experience that could take, who knows, at least 20 hours each one. And that's like Warhammer, Star Wars, Gundam Breaker, which I just realized is not on this list for PC. That's interesting. I have that pre-ordered anyway. Oh yeah, I was talking about the 2 EDFs. That's right. The other one's like a Minecraft-like. It's like what they did with the Dragon Quest Builders. I thought that was fun. That FromSoft. Wait, was it FromSoft? No. There was that pixely RPG that came out like 15 years ago. I got to remember the name of that. Anyway, yeah, I think that's it for today. Not a lot of news, but I think what we're just seeing is it's a little slowdown with the industry. They're still kind of formulating how to do things with their CEOs and at an executive level. And these, again, from the big publishers, from the smaller developers, we're getting a lot of games that are coming out, really. And in terms of big games, nothing major for me coming out soon until Elden Ring. So I'm just gonna try to see how far I can get in V Rising, play some Castlevania games, and yeah, that's about it. But yeah, everyone, thanks for joining. Next week, I'm gonna try to figure out the thing with the mic because it starts fine and then it messes up. Again, maybe I need to build a whole new thing in OBS for that. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we will talk later.